What's up guys, and welcome back to, well, basically our first Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon speculation video. Get ready for a few to come in the future, just possibly. So today, for the first video, obviously the top topic there, or the most expected of it would be the legendaries, because that's pretty much all we have seen, apart from one or two gameplay snippets. But the legendaries do offer us a very good and deep look, well, as combined with the titles, into what these games might be sort of building on Sun and Moon. So, looking at the legendaries, of course, I am going to refer to them as Ultra Solgaleo and Ultra Lunala. If you guys don't think that would be their name, feel free to let me know what you think they might be called in the future. I'm just going for Ultra because Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Ultra sounds about right. That's the reason I'm going for that. If you guys think they're going to be called like Prism Solgaleo, Prism Lunala, let me know down below any other sort of cool names you can come up with them for the moment. But you can see them two here, and obviously they are linked to Necrozma in some aspects of their design, or many aspects of their design. So first thing I'm going to do is actually going to go through and just point out why, if some people possibly aren't quite up to snuff. But very quickly, so Solgaleo here, or Ultra Solgaleo, along with Necrozma, you can see the first thing you can see very easily is on the front of its head it has this multicoloured sort of little patch, and you know, Necrozma has similar sort of multicoloured little fragments of triangles where its face would be. So that's one straight off the bat there. The next one is its body. You can see the top of Necrozma's body there is sort of this prism-like structure with black and then just plate lines, whereas you can see on this side of Ultra Solgaleo here, you can see a very similar plate there. And carrying on further, then of course you have Necrozma's arms, or hands as you might refer to them, and you can see them sticking out the back of Ultra Solgaleo. And then finally, similarly to the hands, we have the feet of Necrozma, and you could link this in some aspects to the feet or the paws of Solgaleo, just the fact that obviously, you know, similar sort of design in terms of spikes, and of course just relate that to the whole design really, spikes everywhere. Then looking at Ultra Lunala, very similarly, to start off, the multicoloured sort of patch on its head, linking in with Necrozma's face. Main body, we don't have this plated section at the top, but we do have, you can see either side of Necrozma's head has a sort of V shape in terms of like shoulder blades, and you can see a very similar V shape on the front of Ultra Lunala's chest. Linking then again into the arms, you can see them sticking out instead of the front of Lunala or Ultra Lunala this time, and then finally the legs you can liken to these long spike-like legs coming out of the side of Ultra Lunala, as well as obviously spikes everywhere, because spikes, who doesn't love spikes? So that's sort of the comparison between the two. We're not gonna, or the three I suppose, we're not going to go too much into depth for that, because that's just pointing out stuff we already know. It is linked in some way. There are aspects of its body that are present on both Ultra Solgaleo and Ultra Lunala, so it's just a case of how do they link to each other. So obviously, initially looking at these guys, you might think, well, I know exactly what's going to be here because we've seen this sort of thing before. Of course, those Pokemon were Black Kyurem and White Kyurem from Black 2 and White 2, which seem to be, you know, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, seem to be very similarly based. They're not going to be sequels as such, but they are a double sequel or a double follow-up, whereas previously to Black 2, White 2, we hadn't received anything like that, and obviously since we haven't until now. But Black Kyurem and Black White Kyurem, of course, for those of you who don't know, are fusions of Kyurem and Zekrom and Kyurem and Reshiram, respectively. So you use the DNA splicers to splice those Pokemon together, and that was it. Fusions. That's the only fusion mechanic we have. So obviously, initially, people very, you know, honestly and very obviously thought, well, another fusion mechanic, part of the fusion mechanic coming in here to fuse up Solgaleo and Necrozma, or Lunala and Necrozma, which seems like a very good first guess. So we're going to talk about why that might be the case, and then offer maybe one or two other options as well. So this is the first option. As we discussed, we have Solgaleo and Lunala, we add Necrozma, and we get Ultra Solgaleo or Ultra Lunala. Why is this seemingly, you know, the one that people would jump to? Well, obviously we've seen it for Kyurem before, so very, you know, sort of, we've seen it before, so why not see it again, basically. And it makes sense, you know, you have the base Solgaleo and you have the base Lunala, and you're just attaching things to their body from Necrozma. So, you know, and to add to this, of course, don't forget, Necrozma is the Prism Pokemon. Solgaleo and Lunala are both not Pokemon based on light, either the sun or the moon, and of course, in real life, prisms refract light, so you could have a similar sort of mechanic, but, you know, canon mechanic here. Add to that the fact that Necrozma's ability is Prism Armor, and you see majority of the changes to Solgaleo and Lunala here in their Ultra forms are armor changes, or at least some form of armor change additions to their body. Prism armor makes a lot of sense there, so of course this could be very easily pre-planned in sort of well in advance when they're first thinking about this trio, because they're not going to make Solgaleo and Lunala and then 6 months after that think, oh shit, what are we gonna add for like a third legendary? Oh, I know, Prism, that makes sense. Light, yes. What's the ability? I don't know, just giving like Prism armor or something. They don't think like that. They plan well in ahead. They think about these, especially the legendary trios, and how they're going to link well in advance of the game's release and the game's planning. So this has been planned for a long time, and they knew they were going to do it. So there is that to it. So that's the first possibility. You take Solgaleo and Lunala, you add Necrozma, and the specifics of this, you could add Necrozma to one of them, you could add to both of them. So if you have all three in your party, you split between the two of them. It could be the fact that Necrozma doesn't necessarily fuse with Solgaleo or Lunala, but is needed to allow them to enter this form, maybe in the same party or something along those lines, rather than just a straight up fusion mechanic. It depends on how they want to go with it, whether they want to use that pre-existing mechanic. Of course, you'd have to then use the DNA splicers to make it really make sense. And I'm not sure whether they'd want to bring the DNA splicers into this game as sort of it's a sort of previous gen item. Whether you want to do it, I don't know. Whether they'd have something different, like a light orb, light refractor, something like that. So I don't know if it would be totally fusion, but there are a few possibilities to make that happen. The other option I've seen thrown around, which is quite an interesting one, is that Ultra Solgaleo and Ultra Lunala are Necrozma. So people, I do quite like it. I can't take credit for these ideas, but people have put out the idea of the possibility that these are actually not Solgaleo and Lunala. They are Necrozma pretending to be Solgaleo or Lunala, which I guess makes some sense. You know, it can't fully mimic it, so instead it has parts of its body left over. But it can mimic it in some aspect because it's a prism and it can reflect light, so it takes light in from its surroundings and then reflects out again. And you can see in these two artwork here for Ultra Solgaleo and Lunala, they have a glow to them. So they're not sort of like solid colour. Of course, we have seen gameplay where they are a solid colour, so that sort of disproves the point. But you could see it being a glowing light and like a mimic almost. I don't think this is going to be where it goes, but it's quite an interesting way they could look to do it, rather than having straight up fusion. Just have more of a mimic one where Necrozma can power up or mimic Solgaleo and Lunala. There's one possibility there. But either way, let's talk about the canonimity of why they would do something like this. So assuming the first idea that you combine them to make an ultra version, why would that happen? Well, Solgaleo, Lunala and Necrozma are all creatures tied to the ultra space, the ultra realm as I refer to it. So we can only assume that has some link to do with this. The games are called Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon after all, so we can assume there will be a bit more of a link to Ultra Space and or Ultra Beasts. So in particulars, Solgaleo and Lunala, as well as their pre-evolutions, but Cosmog and Cosmo-M, they are not Ultra Beasts in essence. They can simply travel between the worlds. You can almost see it as the key between Ultra Space and our world, or the Pokemon world. They are the key to travelling between it, and they have the ability to travel between like so. In terms of Necrozma, it was an Ultra Beast. It came from Ultra Space and simply slept underground for a long time. So it's come from Ultra Space, but it's been here a long while, and there's not a travel back. There might be more Necrozma in Ultra Space we haven't seen yet, but in terms of particular Necrozma, some of them came through and some of them stayed here in the Pokemon world, and so possibly that might be a link or the key to Ultra Solgaleo and Ultra Lunala. So because it is from Ultra Space, it might be sort of the key to unlocking the power, the true power of Solgaleo and Lunala. We don't exactly know the origins of Solgaleo and Lunala, whether they were just created as Pokemon and had special abilities, whether they were exposed to ultra radiation. Obviously it's a family line. You have Cosmo-M, so maybe at some point they were exposed to some form of ultra radiation that allowed them to travel between the worlds. Maybe they were originally from Ultra Space, so like millennia ago, and have sort of just transitioned to life in the normal Pokemon world, but still maintain that ability to travel. And it may be worth sort of pointing out that, of course, none of the other Ultra Beasts are shown the ability to actually travel physically, or not physically, but themselves, between the worlds. Of course, actually, no, I suppose we have seen Nihilego do it. That's my bad. Completely forgot about that. So Ultra Beasts haven't seemed to be able to travel, so it makes sense that Solgaleo, Lunala and their family originally were Ultra Beasts that could travel and just simply settle down for life in the Pokemon world. And of course, a similar thing that Necrozma has done here. So Necrozma could be a key to unlocking the true power of these two by giving them ultra energy, as I'll refer to it, something along those lines, allowing them, imbuing them with ultra power. Pokemon plus ultra power, ultra boost, etc. could be the way it goes there. So that's where the sort of canon comes from. Similar, something along those lines. And of course, the fact that it is the Prism Pokemon, so it can reflect light or refract light, which makes a lot of sense with the two light Pokemon. So in terms of how it'll actually fall out in the story, if we assume a similar story to Sun and Moon, if there are retellings, and instead you have to go and awaken Nebby at the Sun or the Moon altar, where does Necrozma come into play here? Well, it has to be some sort of retelling, of course. So it could also be a totally different adventure, because I can't really see them doing the same adventure again, because you don't have that tension of not knowing that Lucamine is Lily and Gladiator's mother until, obviously we know, but for example, Hal didn't know, so there's a bit of tension left there. We won't have that because we've played the games before. So whether they just completely retell the story and have Aether Foundation be the good guys and maybe Team Skull be the actual bad guys, that would be interesting, who knows. Have some form of different storyline that brings you to the Moon and the Sun altar still, but in different order, or maybe even have you travel to the Moon and Sun altar to begin with, and you end up at the Lake of the Moon or Lake of the Sun for the penultimate battle, the penultimate area, which would make more sense because then you're actually nearer the Pokemon League towards the end of the game. And you can have it work in that sense and have maybe Solgaleo and Lunala are actual legendaries now, they're actually around, and maybe Necrozma comes through and battles them, and something like that. There could be crazy ideas for this sort of thing. Ultra Beasts might actually invade the region, Solgaleo and Lunala try and fend them off, but they can't, so they end up having to find Necrozma to fuse with it, to give it the power to be able to rid the Alola region of these Ultra Beasts. But I think I've spoken for long enough. We've gone over the possibilities for the relationship, and then how that might reflect on the story. So feel free to let me know down below in the comment section what you think, how you think that's all going to link together. Do you think they're going to be fusions? Do you think they're going to be just related in terms of party, and how that's how you unlock the extra form? And how do you think the story is going to play out? Do you think a similar, maybe reverse the islands almost, so you start on Melee still, but then you go to Akala, then you maybe go over to Ula, or not Ula, the last island, I can't remember off the top of my head, and then you go to Ula finally to have the showdown at Lake of the Moon, Lake of the Sun, and then end up going to Pokemon League. Let me know down below in the comment section what you think, any ideas you've got, anything you've got brewing around in those minds of yours, and of course if you like the video, hit the like button, but I'm not too bothered. This will be it for me for today though, so I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching, goodbye my friends.